We are believers, we are teachers, we are all God's creatures. We are opening up the doors to our home. We cherish the moments when we see our children with faith burning strong, learning at their own paces, smiles on their glowing faces. We're caring for their education. Come and join our family at Eden Hope Academy.
Hello, I'm Kim.
And I'm Anna.
And we are on week 18. Do you have your books?
We're glad if you do.
And we're gonna do our timeline. So can you hold it, Anna? Our first timeline card is card number 18. Week number 18, card number 1, and it is Dred Scott. Can you throw up Dred Scott? Leave him up there for a few minutes, okay? So we have Dred Scott, and he was an African-American man whose parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents, probably great-great-grandparents had all been born in the United States and enslaved by other people. And so he did not know probably where in Africa his ancestors had come from, just like you and I really don't know where our ancestors came from in Europe. And he did not speak the African language, and so that's important because we're going to go in the story and we're going to tell you about what happened. So he was enslaved by a man who brought him from a slave-holding state of Missouri up to a free state, and they lived there for several years. And then the man passed away. And so Dred Scott, with the help of people who enslaved him previously, he said, you know something, since I lived for so long in a free state, I should be a free man. So he sued the person who was enslaving him, her brother, and excuse me, and the case went all the way up to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court ruled with Roger Taney, so put up his name, and he was at the Supreme Court, and he ruled that Dred Scott had no reason to be even coming before the Supreme Court because he was not a citizen. Now let's think back to what we said just a few minutes ago. He was born in the United States, his parents were born in the United States, his grandparents, his great-great-grandparents,
His great-great-great-great-grandparents.
And so where was he a citizen of, if not from the United States? And so Roger Taney not only said this, but he said that no African-American person was a citizen in the United States, whether they were free or enslaved by others. And that was just an absolutely outrageous thing to say. It was a horrible thing to say because it dehumanized this entire race of people for no reason except for prejudice. And it was completely wrong. And Roger Taney himself was very much a slave proponent, and so he thought enslaving people was a good thing to do, and he supported it. And so when we think about the Dred Scott case, some of the main points are that the United States Supreme Court, so put these up, the United States Supreme Court said that African Americans were not citizens even though they had no other place to be citizens and they were born here. And it said, excuse me, and it said that African Americans could not sue in a court, which left them entirely defenseless in our legal system because when people did things against them, they could not take the legal way to obtain their rights. So it was completely and totally a horrible ruling, and it's something for us to remember that the Supreme Court, just because they are the Supreme Court, does not mean that their rulings are always just or fair or right, and sometimes they really let their emotions and their personal prejudice get in the way of making good rulings. So that's basically the Dred Scott decision, and what I think we need to focus on are the ramifications of that, and it was something that made the Northerners very upset because they realized the truth that these African American people should have been citizens, they should have the rights to sue in court, and that they had been stripped of these rights by that decision. And it was one of the things that led to the Civil War. All right, are you ready for our next card?
Yeah.
Okay, our next card is week 18.
Charles Darwin on the
Origin of species. Okay, so Charles Darwin jumped into a boat called the Beagle. Let's howl like a beagle. Ooh! Okay, you're supposed to be howling. Ooh! Okay, that's awkward. Okay, so he went on the Beagle and he went down to the Galapagos Islands, and before he had gone down there, he was part of the Lamarck Society. Can you throw up them? And this society believed that the Earth could promote different species to change or to come about. And so Charles Darwin used a lot of these ideas to write this book called The Origin of Species. And so when he went down to the Galapagos Island, show pictures of the Galapagos Island, he observed things like finches. And the finches down there, some of them had much different beaks than the finches that he had always seen in England. And so he surmised, with his thoughts from the Lamarck Society, that perhaps these finches had adapted. So those finches with just a little bit longer of a beak had adapted, and they were able to eat the nuts, and so then they had babies, and they had longer beaks and longer beaks and longer beaks. And you can see, maybe. But the problem is that he took his theory from that, where you could have a finch growing a little bit longer of a beak, to thinking that you could have an ape turning into a human. So throw up his famous picture and keep it up there. And
so, if that were true, and to say it was, would you be able to see like the finches? Would you be able to like see like 8 people?
Well, let's talk about it. That's a good point. So he said that we evolved from the ape. And so we've all seen, have you seen an ape?
No. Yes.
In a zoo? Have you seen an ape?
Well, yeah.
Well, we go to the National Zoo a lot, so
Yeah.
you probably have. Okay, most of you guys have seen apes, right? And so let's look at this picture, and I've seen a human. I mean, I haven't seen one in this room, but I've seen a human before.
You've seen me.
And so I'm just saying, I've seen a human, but I've never seen the in-betweens. And so that's where Charles Darwin's theory breaks down. You have to have faith to believe that those in-betweens exist, that that the fossil record, which has no evidence whatsoever of these, that actually exists, and it doesn't.
And one story that you told us once, there were people who gave like scientists bones, and they thought, well, they were like 8 people and so they put them in newspapers and all this stuff, and it actually turned out that they were pig bones.
That's right. So a lot of times scientists will say, we've discovered the missing link, but the truth is that it doesn't ever work out that way because there is no fossil record. And so to believe in evolution, because it's something that you have to believe in, takes a lot of faith. And it takes actually less faith to believe that a God who loves you, who made you especially just the way you are, who treasured you, created you inside of your mom, and created each of us individually, and also created the apes. So we're going to have you read more about Charles Darwin.
Also, our mouth structure is unique, so it'd be hard to evolve.
Okay, all right.
And
so
also, Grammy would be a half ape.
Why?
Because she would have evolved.
Okay, A, I don't think your grandmother would appreciate you saying that. And B, they're talking about over billions of years, not just 2 generations. So throw up a picture of Grammy. I cannot believe you said that. Okay, so let's go on to Abraham Lincoln. Oh my goodness, my daughter just said that. Okay, so Abraham Lincoln was one of the best presidents of our United States.
And he was the tallest president.
And he was the tallest. He was born on February the 12th, 1809 in a log cabin in Kentucky, and then he moved to Indiana. So can you put up those facts for me? And when he was in Indiana, he was, guess what? Homeless. homeschooled.
Oh,
yay! And he even taught himself law school. And so Abraham Lincoln was practiced as a lawyer, and he was known as Honest Abe. And then he became part of the legislature, and he was a
Legislative.
branch. You're right, but it's called the legislature. Sure. And he was a Republican, and he was adamant about ending slavery. He hated slavery in this country. And so just a month after he started his presidency, the Civil War broke out.
Didn't Harriet Tubman meet him?
Harriet Tubman would be a great link for Abraham Lincoln because she met with him twice. Dred Scott would be another one. Robert E. Lee, Ulysses S. Grant, all of the generals of the Civil War would be great links for Lincoln.
Also, it could link to the Compromise of 1850.
Okay, because that was one of the precursors. It was a great what? Pacifier by
And also
Henry
that
Clay.
could link to what was it? The Constitution of not Constitution.
Okay, so we're going to go on. I want you guys to watch a lot of videos about Abraham Lincoln below. And
He was the 15th president? Or was he the third?
No, it wasn't third. Okay, and we will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Was he the 15th or the third?
I have no idea. That's why I didn't want to